Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Steve Harris, and welcome to the show where it doesn't matter where we start as long as we finish strong. So here's a question for you. How often were you told as a kid, don't let your emotions get the best of you? And then, how many times as an adult do you try to remind yourself of this same saying? What would you say if I told you that saying was a load of crap and we've taken it way too far? Here's why. More often than not, our emotions should be very positive. In fact, it's very seldom, at least I hope so, that we fly off a handle in a fit of anger or at people in general. And if that's not true, you may want to talk to someone about that issue, maybe for another time. Anyway, the human psyche is one that tends to admire traits and characteristics about other people. Unfortunately, we've been taught not to let our emotions get the best of us by our parents, by our teachers, by society in general. I'm going to tell you a personal story. Actually, it's a story I'm a bit ashamed of even sharing, but it's kind of time. As a matter of fact, I tried all week long not to try to share this story, but I knew it was coming. Years ago, I was traveling by car to visit a customer. I traveled this route every week during the summer for 6 years previously, passing the same small, lonely town with this empty railroad track sitting on the west side. On the north side of the road, once I got past that railroad track, sat this antique store that just looked interesting because it was so old and rustic. I told myself for years that one day I was going to stop by and pay a visit to this old store. On this particular sunny day, after this long period of not doing so, I did just that. When I went inside the store, I wasn't surprised to see the floors uneven and dusty antiques with that musty smell that you get sometimes. There wasn't much to see until an old man came out from behind the back room of the store. He said hello and he let me walk around for a little bit. For whatever reason, I wasn't in a real talkative mood, so I was content just walking along without any added conversation. However, it wasn't meant to be. Out of nowhere, he says to me, I just got diagnosed this week with stage 4 cancer. I've been told I have less than 6 months to live. That hit me hard. At this moment, I felt overwhelmed of all the days and years that I could have stopped in this store, this rundown old antique junction. I was brought to this particular moment on this particular day. This was a time for me to respond, right? I felt my body get heavy and my mind begin to race through all these emotions that I could have and maybe even should have said. There was no doubt in my mind that God brought me to this moment and he was going to use me as this conduit to potentially share the gospel. So here's what I did. Nothing. I did nothing. Everything I knew to be true. I wasn't able to let my emotions get the best of me and share God's good word. In fact, I kept my head down. I said, I'm sorry to hear that. I walked out of the store, got in my car, and drove off. I left the man standing in the store after he had just revealed that ultimate ending for himself. That exchange weighed heavily on me throughout the day, and by evening, I was absolutely riddled with guilt. I knew God had placed me in that moment to be his voice and shine a ray of light on a man that desperately needed to not just share his story, but for someone to hear his story as well. At the same time, I didn't honor the task God had placed before me. I wasn't up for the task, and I turned my back on him. And this old man, I buried my emotions deep within, and I left. To this day, I don't know if that man was saved or not. Because I serve an amazing God, I'm going to trust that God put someone else in front of him if, in fact, this gentleman had not yet been saved. So I do know I serve an awesome God, and I know he has forgiven me. However, he uses that moment to remind me at every opportunity to make sure I let my emotions get the best of me, to make sure I let my emotions get the best of me. Now, as uncomfortable as it still feels, I now pull people aside to share that I see the good that they are doing. When they think no one is paying attention to them, doing the right thing, working hard without recognition, whatever it is, I want people to know their efforts aren't going unnoticed, because don't we often feel that way? Don't we feel unseen sometimes? When we're doing the right thing, isn't that the time where we would like to hear that recognition from others? Not when we're just doing the wrong thing, but when we're doing the right thing. In a world where we're surrounded by negativity and made to feel ignored or less than how we should feel about ourselves, I find it fulfilling to recognize others, or in many cases, just listen to their story when they want to share. In fact, that's been one of the biggest blessings for me that has come from writing Rain Falls Down. The blessing isn't that the people are willing to read the book, although that's great. I love that. I'm so happy. But the blessing comes from those who are willing to share their story as a result of reading and hearing mine. Somehow they feel they relate. So during those uncomfortable moments when you feel that pit in your stomach, when you think you should offer recognition, maybe grace or a kind word, but you want to avoid that most awkward moment, think about this. Think about how awkward you're going to feel when you turn away from that moment that was spiritually led, knowing God put you in that situation because he needed to work through you to help someone else. That's awkward. That's uncomfortable. And I speak from experience. Don't stay out of their way. In fact, get in their way. And for God's sake, let your emotions get the best of you. As my good friend and mentor often tells me, pray hard, finish strong. See you guys.